And constructive rest is it's not about just ending up in a big heap on the floor. We're trying to stop the muscles that are switching on too much, too frequently, habitually. We're just trying to turn the volume down of those so that we can move about without feeling like we're driving the car with the handbrake on. And so I'm hoping now that everyone's managed to find their way onto the floor and that they've got their head supported, and you want a little bit of space under your knees. You don't want to be feeling pinched at the backs of the knees. It's quite nice to let them have a bit of freedom. And the legs are parallel, roughly. It depends on your body, whether your toes are going to point out a little bit, or, you don't want them totally flat, parallel, I wouldn't say. Might be a bit funny for the knees. Find the ease in your body. That's your goal. What's comfortable today might not have been comfortable yesterday, might not be comfortable tomorrow. What's comfortable today? That's what's important. And as you're lying there and I'm rambling away, you're allowing the weight of your body to rest into that support, rest into that floor or firm surface that you're on. And of course your body's lying there. Of course you're going to let it rest. What else would you be doing? But actually, in a funny way, we're not. There'll be some sneaky hanging on. And we're going to start with letting go some of the sneaky hangings on by paying attention to the neck. And there's a million things we could ask, we could let go in the neck. But why don't we start actually with the jaw? How's your jaw? In a perfect world, you want your mouth closed, your teeth gently apart, and to be breathing through the nose. In and out, nice and steady, nothing clever, nothing fancy, just breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. Except sometimes we have cold, sometimes we have hay fever, sometimes that isn't possible. So whatever's possible, just keep the breathing going. Soften your tongue, let it rest somewhere in your mouth, wherever it rests, wherever's comfortable for it. And as you're softening your tongue, you might remember that it's long. It doesn't just sit in your mouth, it goes all the way down your neck. Its connective tissue goes all the way down your neck. So asking the tongue to soften is like asking for the inside of your neck to free, to release. Imagine that the whole column of your neck is relaxing back into length. But also imagine that your neck is wider than it is. As if as you're easing and asking for the tension to free, the neck becomes a bit broader, especially around the base of your skull, broadening across the base of the skull, and around the base of the back of your neck. And you could almost think of those tops of shoulders widening as well. That would be useful. But take your mind away now from that area. Don't dwell. Don't think, oh, if I think a bit harder, I'll get it next time. It's time to move on. It's time to move on to your armpits and send a message to your armpits to let go. Letting go around the armpits, letting the ribs under the armpits be free. What does that mean? It means you can allow them to move with your breathing so that your ribs just below the armpits, around under the shoulder blades, expanding and releasing with each breath. I let my ribs be free. And another way of us saying that, of thinking around that, is that the back is widening. You're allowing your upper back to widen, to relax into width. Noticing your resting upper back. Take another moment to notice the weight of your head resting on your support, your books or blocks or firm cushion, whatever you've chosen. And know that there's a distance between the back of your head and your resting upper back, there's space, length. And then we'll leave that. We'll move away from that thought. We're not trying to hang on to anything. We're not trying to get anything. We're just moving through the body, finding a bit of ease, finding a bit of comfort. So take your mind to your lower back ribs. Imagine them. If you're a visual person, imagine what they look like. Big, sweeping lower ribs. You've even got floating ribs down there as well, ones that don't sweep round to the front of the body. Just roughly, loosely imagining there they are, lower back ribs, and ask them to drop back and widen. Don't do it, don't shove them, don't press them into the floor. But see if you can give up the effort around the rib cage, the holding, the gripping. Let there be softness, width, ease. Do nothing with your arms. Allow them to be. They are not actioning anything at the moment. So the message from your brain can be one of silence, stillness, and quiet. As you're doing nothing with your arms, do nothing with your legs. How easy is that? Well, your legs are doing something. Your legs are bent and your feet are on the ground. So there's some degree of effort there. There's some degree of muscle activity. But I imagine that there could be less. I think that there could be slightly less. And if you send your intention to the big thigh muscles that wrap around the thighs, to the calves, that intention of softening, of lengthening. Can you imagine that the strong thigh muscles are softly relaxing back towards your hip sockets? Can you imagine or ask that the calf muscles softly lengthen down towards the Achilles and down towards your heel? It's a bit of a game, really, with the legs. How little effort can you use to keep your legs in this position? And something that can really help is a gentle thought of lightness under the kneecaps. As if the kneecaps are a little bit spring-loaded, directing their way up towards the ceiling. And having this directed thought, this intention that the knees are springing up towards the ceiling, means that you might be able to think again of a little bit of softness, a little bit of ease through the upper part of the legs, closer to the pelvis. As if you're creating an opposing force between your springy kneecaps and the resting heads of your thigh bones. And while you're here, in your legs, connecting into your pelvis. Let's have a little think about the pelvis. It's heavy. It's got big, heavy wings of bones, one on the left, one on the right. And without doing anything, without a forceful effort, but more of a want, a wish, intention, you're going to think of these two big wings, the left wing of the hip, the right wing of the hip, slightly moving away from each other, as if you're creating an openness through the back of the pelvis, a widening. You're claiming your space. You're creating space in your body so that there's enough room for you. And we want space in the pelvis so that all of that creative energy can swirl around it, flowing easily. Soften your belly. Just let that go. You don't need to hang on to that. The abdominal muscles can all calm right down now, lying here on the floor. Allow all those innards to fall back towards the front of your spine. Don't grip the insides of yourself. They won't thank you for it. Soften your belly and ask your back to widen. As if that rib cage is free and easy. So that as the air comes in through your nose and out through your nose, there's a flowing feeling with each breath. A gentle movement through the sides of you, through the back of you. How's your head doing? Are you still comfortable? If it feels as if the books or the blocks are getting a bit hard on the back of your head, there could be a couple of reasons for this. It might be that you're sneakily gripping in your neck again and you're pulling your head back and down and onto those books. Or it might be that something's released through your back, through your legs, through your body. And what was where your neck was happy is no longer. And sliding a small book away is appropriate. Feel free to experiment with that. Comfort is what we're aiming for. An easiness in your body. A lightness through your bones. Remind your jaw that it doesn't need to grip. And that you're not doing the talking, so your tongue can rest softly in your mouth. We tend to practice constructive rest with our eyes open, but I know often they end up drifting into closed states. If they have been closed for this amount of time, gently open them. And if your eyes are open, give them the direction to rest inside your head. Really allow yourself to look out from within your own skull. To not be pulled forwards to the things that you're looking at. but to rest back in your skull and see what's going on, the cobwebs on your ceiling, the room in general. And as you're looking out, remind your neck that it can relax back into length, back towards the floor behind you. And after all of this thinking through your body, we might revisit the shoulder girdle again. The collarbones resting lightly on your chest. The tops of your arm bones resting back towards the floor behind you. Have you tightened under your armpits again? Can you check that and release them if you have? And then continue with your mind around through to the back of you, to those resting shoulder blades. Where are they at? Those two shoulder blades that are sunk in connective tissue and muscle. They can only be where you put them. And if you want them to be somewhere different, softening, letting go, finding some ease across your upper back is the way forward. In your mind, find your armpits again. We're going to think of widening across this part of your back, from your left armpit to your right. And you might notice that as you ask for widening from armpit to armpit, the rib cage through the sides of your body feels a little easier, feels a little bit more springy. Allow the ribs to move with each breath. Even the lower back ribs dropping back and widening. So the belly softening, the tops of your legs undoing a bit. Do they need to move? Do they feel comfortable? Say hello to your feet. Because as you undo some of the excessive tension through the body and find yourself back towards appropriate tone, we find that the feet can feel the floor a little bit more. As the connective tissue in the hips releases and softens, and we let go around the knees, it's as if we're wearing a pair of tights that feel suddenly a little bit easier around the toes, around the heels, around the ankles. I'd like you to start to wiggle your toes a little. Little toes, the big toes. Perhaps pick them all up, spread them, place them back down again. As your feet make that contact with the floor, think of a lovely bit of force, a sort of reverse force coming up through the shin bones, up through the kneecaps and up to the ceiling. A springiness coming up from the ground. So you've got a choice now. If constructive rest is your thing and you do this all the time and you feel you want to stay there, you're absolutely welcome to stay there. And you'll be responsible for rolling on your side and coming up, and that's absolutely fine with me. But if this is a bit new to you, then it's probably a good idea to allow yourself to be talked through a bit of a getting up process. And I think it's always good to let the body know that we're going to move, to set that intention. Oh, and in a moment, I'm going to have to, rock and roll in my pelvis, and maybe start doing that. Let the legs fall a little to the left, a little to the right, so that you're waking up or easing off that lower back, that back of pelvis area. If you're one for being a bit nicky, you might feel that it's a good idea to soften your jaw and allow the head to roll a little to the left and a little to the right. It's not an exercise class, we're just mindfully moving the body. Doing our best to keep the awareness and the calm through the body as we bring it back into activity. And your room is your room, and so you'll know where you can roll to. And maybe you can't roll to the left because you've got a radiator beside you. Maybe you only have the one option of rolling one way. But whatever you decide, make that a choice, make it conscious, know which way you're turning. And then you can let your head roll towards that side. And the body follows, the knees, the pelvis. And if I were you, I'd take a moment and rest on the side. If it's comfortable to do so, take a pause. Even a breath. And then very gently in your own time, you can push yourself up, coming up to sitting. And even then when you're up to sitting, another pause. Because this work is very good for reducing that blood pressure. And if you are a little bit low blood pressured as a rule, you might find that you're a bit dizzy, or, it's a good idea to pause. That's all I'm going to say. Take your time. Honor yourself with time. I will, of course, send out an email to remind you or to let you know when the next one is, and put it on Facebook. If you're not on my mailing list and you'd like to be, then just get in touch and I'll put you on there. Thanks so much for joining me. I really hope your bodies are enjoying this, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.